dark jacket and white sleeves. They've gone past the halfway stage.
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
We'd like to thank Woodbine for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Woodbine open now through December, featuring great racing, including the King's Plate coming up in August, Turf Champions Day with the Woodbine Mile in September, and much, much more. Woodbine Racing, great racing north of the border. Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. I'm Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us. A little bit later on, we'll be joined by Ken Weingartner from the U.S. Trotting Association. Last night, they had the 2-year-olds in the Breeders' Crown, the harness equivalent of the Breeders' Cup. And tonight, more divisions will face off in races that, like the Breeders' Cup, tend to decide some year-end honors on the harness side of the game. That all happening at the Meadowlands tonight. So we'll get a little preview of some of the Saturday night action from Ken Weingartner a little bit later on. But also on the thoroughbred side of things, a nice day of stakes action, New York and Keeneland. And who better to reach out to than our friend Ellis Starr, national racing analyst from Equibase, for thoughts on both of those venues, because his Equibase race of the week this week, the Mother Goose, but he always has some selections on the Keeneland website. Ellis, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. Good morning, racing fans.
And I was looking at your Twitter feed, and I noted that you had Echo Sound as your race of the day pick, and congratulations there. I couldn't quite pull the trigger. I thought it was a kind of a fun race, and I went in a couple other different directions, but a nice call on Echo Town and a nice race by Echo Sound. Excuse me, a nice race by Echo Sound as well.
Yeah, it was interesting. Other horses took a little more action, which was good. I mean, 3-1 was more than square. I didn't pull the trigger as much as I would like to have, and as I've been doing every day this week, playing a 4 and missed one other one. But the horse ran really well, a really good sprinter, great race off the pace, and another winner for Rusty Arnold, who had his 300th, I believe, at Keeneland earlier in the meet, and then 2 on yesterday. Just a nice play. We've had a lot of really interesting and good efforts from horses running off the board, of course, in the Breeders' Cup. But this one's one to look forward to next year. We're discussing whether in the press box it's a good idea to keep this horse running short, because he's so good short. But maybe stretch out later on. The breeding suggests maybe not, but it is one heck of an effort. And again, I was pleased to do that. The race of the day. It's tough to pick that one race, to the one that you think is going to be the best, to give the strongest opinion on and get it right as well. But I was happy for the fans that worked out.
I've been there because there are a few summers where the local ABC affiliate, I would go in at Saratoga, their 6 o'clock news. I'd be in the sports segment, and they would have me make a pick of the day for the next day. And you would have like a 5-win day, but the one you put on TV was not one of them. It was very frustrating, but very rewarding when you actually managed to score there. So as I say, a nice move. And I did I was doing the handicapping show in the afternoon yesterday. So after that race, I commented just what you said. So far, now a nice 3 for 3, but all at sprint distances. But you always think, I completely appreciate the folks who realize what they have and can kind of stay there. But if you get into that 3-year-old season, it always seems like, and I can't blame Connections for that either, they'll take a shot to maybe stretch out just to see what they have at some point.
We're not talking about next, are we?
Yeah.
But taking a shot at the Breeders' Cup Classic is a separate story. I know you probably covered it or will be covering it. But when you said that, the first thing that came to mind is, you know what you got. What are you going to do? You're going to stay in that position. You're going to take a shot. So.
And I can't. I think the next story is kind of interesting. I'm not sure which direction I would have gone. They were debating Breeders' Cup Classic or the turf, but it'll be interesting taking a shot. I'm not sure. Well, we'll find out. I was going to say, is he that caliber? He is clearly the king of the marathoners, but he's going to add some interest, no question about it.
If you saw my tweet and folks that follow my X feed on Twitter, I put out a tweet yesterday comparing, just use White Barrio to Next. And one thing about Next is, his shortest race is 1 3/8. So, mile and a quarter is a little shorter, but he runs 37, 30 for the GPS stuff. He runs 37 to 38 miles an hour the entire last 5/8 of a mile. And whereas, of course, like White Barrio, who did open up and win though, but those are the usual classic. They're going 35 and slowing down to 30. And it's just very interesting to see where Next would be, because if he keeps running about 37 miles an hour, he could actually win that race. And, we discussed this in the past. I tell people all the time that when a horse on dirt comes from way, way back, it's not that they're speeding up in almost every case. It's that they're slowing down less than the rest or running the same speed. And he runs the same speed that last 5/8. I mean, that's 30 miles an hour in the last 5/8 of 11 furlong races. Pretty good.
And like I say, he had some interest. Now, on the flip side of the coin, the news yesterday, Idiomatic retired, a little ding on the knee, and they said nothing major, but it just was going to take the horse out of the Breeders' Cup, and so at that point, retired. But it seemed like for the last couple of weeks, and maybe a while longer now, it seemed like Torpedo Anna versus Idiomatic might be the storyline of the Breeders' Cup overall. The distaff may have taken precedent over the Classic itself, and now we're right up here. Kenny McPeak, I think, I'm sure is in town from where he was tweeting the last couple of days. He's come back, and Torpedo Anna has been up here at Saratoga, and she's looked fantastic. So, I mean, she is certainly an interesting storyline in and of herself now, but we're not going to get the matchup that we were all hoping for.
Yeah, true, very true.
And as I say, Torpedo Anna will be a lot of fun, and that matchup is going to overshadow the Classic a little bit. What are your thoughts overall on the Classic? To me, the division this year is a little bit weak, perhaps, but I think the Classic has interest in and of itself with the foreign contingent, particularly, obviously, City of Troy and Forever Young.
Yeah, of course. Forever Young done nothing wrong. The City of Troy is a beat if he can transfer his form. I was very high on Arthur's ride this summer. I picked him in that race on one of the national blogs I did. It's just a matter of who's going to do it. I do like the younger horses, particularly this year. The older division doesn't seem to be as strong as that. To your point about Torpedo Anna now being, not being a matchup with Idiomatic, I mean, on one hand, Cody's Witch didn't have any competition. He still was a big story. So we should be okay. Yeah,
no, you're right. Give us some thoughts on the Keeneland meet overall. There was a point where folks were commenting it was a little bit chalky, but I think, chalk keeps everybody happy because it's the favorite. But I think there was a pretty good mix. And I think, you mentioned Rusty Arnold with kind of a notable. I think Brendan Walsh had a pretty good meet. I think it's been fun, as it always is. Spring and fall, that 3 weeks of high-quality racing, I think overall it's been a lot of fun.
Well, every time I turn around, there's a $50 winner, so I don't know about the chalk. I know there's been a bunch of it, but yesterday, and Johnny Lee rode a couple, Frankie rode a couple. The turf course has been holding up really well because we did have a storm before the started, but they don't water it much, and so it's been really interesting to see the number of wire-to-wire winners, which you don't expect on the Keeneland turf. Of course, it's really not making up ground. They're kicking up some sand, and it's just interesting. But you will have the occasional closer just zooming up the rail or down the middle of the track. It's been a great meet. I mean, I can only say from a fan perspective, I was out yesterday walking around, and it was like bluegrass day. You couldn't get anywhere in less than 15 minutes, which is a lot for a small track like Keeneland. Folks out enjoying it. 17 days. Let's we get a downpour today. 17 days of a fast main track. The turf course has been good on 2, firm on the other 15. It's been unbelievable. The attendance has got to be a record, even though they've been capping it. Next year will be different when the construction is done. I will just say the community's been embracing it. I'm meeting so many people from out of town coming in to Keeneland's meeting. Saratoga also just gets all the people from everywhere they want to go and be there. And it's just been, from that perspective of just people enjoying their day at the races, it's been a phenomenal meet.
I was going to comment, the weather has been just, you couldn't ask for better. But you say today may turn around a little bit?
No, we're not expecting rain. I was kind of kidding when I said that. But it will be great horse weather today. It's supposed to be a high of 64.
Yeah, all right.
So there's going to be a cloudy and 64 to end up meet today.
Yeah, just sitting in here watching during, as I said, the last 3 weeks, the afternoon handicapping show, the weather has been great. Really, at various venues this fall. I mean, Belmont down at Aqueduct has had nice weather this fall as well. And let's jump in. We'll get a little Keeneland in a couple of minutes because they have nice stakes action on closing day. But let's take a look first. Your Equibase race of the week this week is the Mother Goose. As the history says, 3-year-old fillies. Normally, my background, this was much earlier in the year, but still interesting now in the fall. Grade 2 event, $250,000 up for grabs, 9 furlongs. Nice field in here. I'm going to pull up a replay going back to the Seneca at Churchill Downs because, again, reading your analysis, I know you're taking a look at Life Talk. The winner here is going to be number 12, Miss Justify, but running second will be number 9, Life Talk. And Life Talk, this was the first start of a little bit of an April to September layoff, so got some fitness, you would think, for Todd Pletcher. I put Life Talk down at the bottom of my mix. I like Tarifa in here. Comes out of a third in the cotillion behind Torpedo Anna and Gunsong. Gunsong is also in this afternoon. I put that one down in the second spot. Headline numbers for Chad Brown and Klarovich, lightly raced and gets a little bit of a test here, but I think she is interesting. And as I say, I have Life Talk in the mix as well. But give us your thoughts this afternoon in the Mother Goose.
Well, as I wrote in our Equibase Race of the Week article on America's Best Racing and Equibase, since the race changed, it's a different set of preps. And I went and just looked at last year's winner, Zadira, and Zadira prepped in the Seneca overnight last year. I think she was second in that race. And also, interestingly enough, I was looking in the 2021 Seneca, played hard, came back to run second in the Cumling, which also is this time of year for 3-year-olds. And that was the key to me. I see what Todd's doing here. Didn't run well in the Gazelle, big win last year in the Demoiselle at 9 furlongs at Aqueduct, and now finishing really fast, beating a half length in the Justify. Now, just this week, we had a horse. It will be a key race because the first 4 finishers have not come back. But the 5th horse out of the Seneca, Neon Icon, was a very strong winner earlier this week at Keeneland in a second level allowance. And the 6th finisher, Home Game, ran second also at Keeneland. So only 2 horses come back have done well. But it just seems to me this is what Todd's doing. April to September layoff, pointing for the Mother Goose. Where am I going to run? Now the race is in the fall. I'm going to run in a prep race for 3-year-olds at Churchill. A big effort, and she's going to really take a nice step forward. So I wouldn't say it's my strongest opinion of the day, but I do feel like I'd like to, as I did about the Echo Sound yesterday, it's a really strong play for me as far as a win bet. Gunsong, no knocks, but she was 44 to 1. I could tell you, Torpedo Anna was in it. She ran well. She stopped. She made the lead. She was coming back on Torpedo Anna, who may have been just kind of taking it easy, but she did, get within the neck of her again near the wire, and certainly is a contender. And headline numbers for Chad, an interesting horse, 9 furlong race in August. It was a very good race. It compares favorably to Live Talk Demoiselle. I like horses that can run 9 furlongs, so that's important. She's on an improving pattern. It's only her 3rd start, but Chad wouldn't put her in the race. Irad is riding in New York today instead of Keeneland where he's been riding, so it's a good sign. So it's those 3 for me, Live Talk, Gunsong headline numbers. I might consider Tarifa underneath, and I might consider Just Magic underneath for a price because she's been second or third in 10 or 15, and definitely be a nice price.
Yeah, it looks like a fun addition, certainly. With the Breeders' Cup coming up, we think all the big horses are headed to that. But as we'll see a little bit later on as we get to Keeneland, that's not necessarily the case. Folks get realistic and think, man, maybe we're not Breeders' Cup caliber, but we're right on the cusp. And so there's some nice stakes action this afternoon, including the Mother Goose. But let's go over to Keeneland now. 3 nice stakes down in Kentucky. The Bowman Mill will kick off the stakes section in race number 6. $200,000 up for grabs for the 2-year-olds going 6 furlongs. I pulled up a replay of the debut effort from Terrapin Station. Going to be the number 11 horse here for Dale Romans. Comes off, again, a nice victory here. It was over a sloppy track, and a lot of people kind of maybe are suspect of performances on sloppy tracks, but it was a good-looking debut. I'm going with Middy's Gritty, the Brad Cox runner, who came from out of the clouds to win a career debut effort. That's not something you normally see for the 2-year-olds in their first start. Macho Music is interesting to me as well for Rohan Creighton. Came up from Florida and won at Keeneland in the 3rd start. Long Neck Paul is interesting for Wesley Ward. What are your thoughts on the Bowman Mill?
Yeah, first of all, Long Neck Paul was entered yesterday in the Myrtlewood, the race won by Equibase. Because Wesley Ward has no problem starting his 2-year-olds against males, but scratch out of that. He's got White Sands. I think he's going to scratch one of them. We'll see what happens in that one for sure. But Terrapin Station, who you pulled the video up, is my top choice here, only because it was a mature off-the-pace win. Middy's Gritty certainly was visually impressive, but nobody's coming from far back. When you go from the 12-horse field to a 6 or 7-horse field, and a horse that closed from last, I don't know the horse has learned yet to be closer up, and she may be way too far back for this field. I would consider her. But Terrapin Station for Dale. Dale had a winner the other day, a big price. Just comes up with some really nice horses. The progression was so mature, coming from off the pace with an 85 Equibase figure, which is very comparable. Macho Music, the 2-to-1 favorite, had an 86 figure. So the maiden win by Terrapin Station was just as good as Macho Music's win, in my opinion. The Wesley's horse, the White Sands, would probably be the early leader if she goes. She's the early speed in the race, but Macho Music is as well. So if they both go, that could be an issue. So Terrapin Station's got the value for me. Long Neck Paul also ran maturely, winning the Prairie Meadows race. You don't really usually hear Wesley Ward and Prairie Meadows in the same sentence, but he shipped up and win an easy $100,000 stake, wrapped up and very mature from off the pace. So the fact that she opted for this race rather than the boys just says they want the purse. So those are the top 2. I would look at Politically Correct, Chris Davis, who won the Bashford Manor at Churchill from 12th, also the same kind of race that Middy's Gritty won. But she won wire to wire first time out, so she does have speed. She gets Jose Ortiz, I don't think he's got a shot at catching Tyler Gaffalione at this point. The Gaffalione's probably about 7 wins. But he's been riding really well at the meet. So that's for me. Terrapin Station, Long Neck Paul, Politically Correct, and I'll throw Middy's Gritty in the mix. I am going to take a little bit of stand against Macho Music, only because I think even if White Sands doesn't run, I'm not sure that she can go wire to wire against this quality of field.
Yeah, it's always questionable as they step up a little bit in the stakes company and you get a field full of talented runners. All right, a little bit later on, the Fayette. This is the older division, Grade 2 status, $350,000 up for grabs, going 9 furlongs. Nice field in here. Trademark, who last fall at this time, right around this time, won the Clark, but prior to that had run in the Fayette and had not run particularly well. So Trademark is in here, and it's kind of interesting for Vicky Oliver, who had a couple of big-priced winners earlier in the meet. Happily, I was on one of them, but not the other. I pulled up a replay here going back to the Lucas Classic, the end of September at Churchill. It will be Hit Show, the number 6 horse, getting it done. Cook Creek, number 4, runs 2nd. And Rattle and Roll, the number 2, runs 3rd. Rattle and Roll is a horse I've kind of been intrigued with throughout the career, and I've been hit and miss with this one for Ken McPeak. But interesting, this race we're looking at where Rattle and Roll winds up 3rd, the Lucas Classic, this was his first start since last year's Lucas Classic. So Rattle and Roll's interesting to me, 2nd start on the comeback. But I do think Hit Show, who we just saw win there, I think Hit Show is probably the one to beat. What do you think in the Fayette?
Well, first, I like Rattle and Roll as a horse, and I hate to knock a horse, but my gosh, is this horse overbet.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're right.
Since he won last year, he won the Pimlico Special, the Ben Ally, the Timberwolf Special and Blame. And since then, 8-5, 6-5, 9-2, and he's just run clunkers in that he doesn't show any kick in the last 8. I think he's sour. No, I'm certainly not from Ken McPeak, but he's sour. I don't see him turning it around. And the fact he takes money is great, in my opinion. His show's a really nice horse. His win at Keeneland came a long time ago. It was in his maiden win in October of 2022 at 7 furlongs. Of course, now he is a 9 furlong horse. Watson Racing, who owns him, also has Tumbarumba, who is a very tough, consistent horse with 11 first or seconds in 16 races. 4 seconds in a row, 2 at this level. He's a really good horse. He's not as good as 9 furlongs. I suspect, because Saez is running Tumbarumba, that he's in the race to ensure an honest pace for his show. He's good on his own, by the way, but I suspect that Saez, as aggressive as he usually is, and with no real need to lead type in the race, is going to send Tumbarumba, which is supposed to help his show. His show's certainly good. I give Heroic Move a slight preference, only because he finished second to Hit Show in the West Virginia Governor Stakes, and the Hit Show came back to win the Lucas Classic. Heroic was in rest. Now, for those folks that don't know, Robertino Diodoro finally reached an agreement with the racing authority, HISA, and he's back training, back running. He was just running a Mountaineer in Texas, Louisiana, and now he's back on all the other circuits. And he's had okay meet so far, but this is a really nice horse. He won 3 Sexton Mile in May with a 103 Equibase speed figure. In the West Virginia Governors, a 104 figure. And I think it was a really good race. A couple of horses in that race have come back to win since. So it's really a 2-horse race, in my opinion, but I'll take 6-1 all day. Morning line of Heroic Move over Hit Show. And underneath, Tumbarumba and War Camping for second. So 7-8 over 2-4-7-8 exact and try. And I'll make the window on Heroic Move here.
I think it is an interesting field. Again, the handicap division doesn't jump off the page overall this year, but I think this is an interesting bunch this afternoon in the Fayette. And finally, we wrap up stakes action. Race number 9 this afternoon. The Bryan Station. It is a Grade 3 event, $600,000 up for grabs, and it's the subdivision I talk about a lot. I really like 3-year-olds on the turf. I say it all the time. From 1st of January to December 31st, it seems like there are plenty of these 3-year-old on the turf stakes races at venues all across the country. And this lives up to the appreciation I have for this division with a nice full field in here. Trickery has been interesting to me all year long for Graham Motion. And I'm going to pull up a replay of the Secretariat. This is 2 races back for Trickery. Going to be the number 9 horse here under John Velasquez, winning the Secretariat down at Colonial. The follow-up, they took a little shot. They tried older horses, shipped out to Southern California, ran 4th, but a close-up 4th against older in the City of Hope last time. But again, this is 2 starts back against 3-year-olds in the Secretariat, gets it done, gets back in against 3-year-olds again today in the Bryan Station. Brilliant Birdie for Cherie DeVoe, who's had a very nice meet and is having a really nice year. Overall is intriguing. My Boy Prince for Mark Cassie. Close up second in the King's Plate this year, and then followed up. They got ambitious, tried the Woodbine Mile last time, but similarly, that was against older. Similarly to Trickery, gets back in against the 3-year-olds here. I think My Boy Prince is very interesting at a price. Mansa Musa for Bill Mott could be playable. What did you see? This is a fun race. What did you see in the Bryan Station?
Oh, a fun race. 12 plus 3 also eligibles. Really interesting thing. So this is for people that check out my Twitter feed. This is a race I did for one of the other websites, and I really like it. I'm going to start with Neat on the rail at a wonderful odds of 8-1. He was 5-2 in the Gun Runner, $1.5 million race, and before that, for those folks, and you particularly, Chef, that saw him, he won the Hall of Fame at Saratoga at 7-2, and here he is at 8-1. I'm fascinated by the jockeys that have made choices and their agents where to go. Not only is Junior Alvarado riding today, this is why he's riding, because this is a $600,000 purse. Not only that, but he's rode Mansa Musa in every one of his 6 U.S. starts, and he's sticking with Neat for Rob Atras. And I can see why. 6 for 10. That Hall of Fame was fantastic. As opposed to some of the others, he has a win at Keeneland. He won the spring version of this race, Transylvania. by a nose. He was 13-1 that day. And again, sits in the Manila and the Hall of Fame. Then to Kentucky Downs. This horse he doesn't carry his track around with him. He can run anywhere, gets the rail. In the Hall of Fame, he came home in 22 flat. Nobody can match that here. If Junior gets any kind of a trip, especially if there's some pace at all, I think he can run a huge race, 6 for 10, make it 7 for 11. And I love the fact he goes from 10 to 10 post in the gun runner stakes to the rail here as well. So he's my top pick. After that, it is a heck of a race. I'm going to look for value after that because some horses shouldn't be big prices. But Lagnios, who ran second in the Hall of Fame, then went to the Nashville Derby as opposed to the gun runner, and didn't run a lick. Maybe didn't like the track. He came home in 22-4. He made the lead at the 8th pole in the Hall of Fame. And I think he's going to be overlooked here. He does have a race on the Keeneland grass. He was third to Neat in the Transylvania 8.5 lengths, so he's been behind Neat twice. But for second and third, even in exactly in trifectas, he's going to be 15-1 or so. And I could use him a lot. Montemisi, you mentioned, is really no like. He's trying to trench for the first time, but 10 Sovereigns, unknown sire to some people. He's a fantastic European sire. There's a few U.S. horses. 10 Sovereigns is the sire of a horse in Zulu Kingdom, which should be one of the favorites in next week's Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, a fantastic turf runner. And I made a note here that in the Kelso, Mott used Saez. Oh, yeah, a horse named Casa Creed. That's what it was.
Oh, yeah, Leon Seidler. Yeah.
Yeah, a horse that Mott stretched out from 6 furlongs to win a cup, to win the 4-Star Dave, and also I think the Kelso. So I'm even though Alvarado gets off, I'm using Montemusa. I can see Brilliant Birdie. I can see Trickery. 2-1, 7-2. I'm going to try and beat him. I'm going to use him in exotics, but not win bets. And then you mentioned My Boy Prince. Very interesting. Ran pretty good at the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf last year, so I know he can hail turf. Perchi, who ran second in Brilliant Birdie. A lot of horses that have been, in the money with some of the others in here, and Trickery as well. So I'm telling you for sure, the win bet's on me, and after that, I'm not sure, but I'm going to use Lagnios certainly in my exotic. That's 2 opinions I can make about this, which is going to be, as you said, a fantastic race.
Well, your morning line 8-1 and 15-1, and I think as I'm looking, I think you're going to get your value on both of those horses. So I'm wishing you a lot of luck, and I may have to play around with those just so I'm not sitting on the sideline going, Ellis talked about that this morning when it pays $200. So, but I like it. I think it's a race where maybe you can take a little swing like that. It should be a fun closing day down at Keeneland with, again, a nice slate of stakes to wrap things up. And I talked about it yesterday. I haven't mentioned it yet today. But tomorrow at Churchill, always one of the fun days of the year with the 2-year-olds tomorrow at Churchill. And I haven't looked at the card yet, but I'm looking forward to it because I love 2-year-old racing. So we do wrap up Keeneland, but Churchill is off and running with a great card tomorrow as well.
Yeah, no, it's great. I haven't taken a look. I might post some opinions on Twitter. I have a couple of my horses to watch list that I've taken my highlighter out for tomorrow as well. That ran really good, especially on the rags to riches. A horse named Claire's Charm and Alieska. I'll just mention it now. Dapper Moon and the Street Test. I have a little green highlight on that. So I'm going to look at about 6 of those tomorrow. And for folks that follow me, I'll probably post 2 opinions. It is really a great card. A little tough with all 12 horse field practically, but a great card.
Yeah, and that just means that there's the potential for some nice value. You mentioned your Twitter feed. We had it up there with your picture as we were talking to you at Uber Capper, so folks can check that out certainly. And again, wish you a lot of good luck this afternoon. And Ellis, we will talk again.
Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great day today. Enjoy the great weather around the country.
Ellis Starr, national racing analyst for Equibase. And again, you can find his work over on America's Best Racing and plenty of other venues as well. Again, selections over on the Keeneland website throughout the meet, some of the other tracks also. Before I go to commercial, and again, we'll come back with Ken Weingartner from the U.S. Trotting Association. We'll talk a little Breeders' Crown for tonight. But before I do that, we were kind of alluding to it, and I had pulled up the list last night. Always interested to see the human side of things as meets wrap up. And Keeneland's meet, again, closing day today. On the jockey side of things, as Ellis said, Tyler Gaffleone, a 5-win edge on Jose Ortiz. And let me just pull up because I'm, if I can do it quickly. He actually has, I don't think I parsed them out in order of wins. So let me see if I can do that quickly because he only has 4 over Luis Saez, if I'm reading correctly. So again, let me see if I can quickly grab that online and parse them out by the number of wins to get it correct. Yeah, Luis Saez. So it's Tyler Gaffalione with 22, Luis Saez with 18, Jose Ortiz third with 17, and then a tie in fourth, Flavian Prat and Irad Ortiz both with 11. You would think with a 4-win lead, Tyler Gaffalione's in pretty good shape coming into this afternoon. And then on the trainer side of things, Brad Cox, very good meet, 36 starters, 13 wins. Rudy Brissett, 9 wins. Rusty Arnold, again, we mentioned him having a good meet with 8 wins. Brendan Walsh, as I said, there was about a week there where he was really on fire right in the middle of the meet. But Brendan Walsh was 7 and Wesley Ward with 5. Cherie DeVoe, a number of trainers actually tied with 4. Cherie DeVoe, Dale Romans, Brian Lynch, Eddie Keneally, Joe Sharp, and David Jacobson all tied with 4. Chad Brown down there with 3, tied with Will Walden. Will Walden, a stakes win. For a trainer who is relatively new. And I saw Will Walden tweeted out as a new addition to the family. So congratulations to Will and his wife there. And trainer Joe Sharp, interesting, the Fire Hill jump meet last week. There was the flat race, and Joe Sharp was scheduled to be on board one of the runners. Well, we talked about it when we had Joe Clancy on last week, but his horse had scratched. And I thought, it's going to be interesting. Well, subsequently, I saw on Twitter there was some kind of a hunt meet last week, and Joe Sharp was riding one of those horses. So he did get his ride in, and I think did okay, if I remember. But just that he hopped on board and had a ride during the week was interesting. So Joe Sharp, jack of all trades, as it were. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, as mentioned, we'll catch up with Ken Weingartner, get some thoughts on tonight's Breeders' Crown, and maybe a little recap of some of the 2-year-old action Breeders' Crown last night. All of that when Racing Across America continues. Stay tuned.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. In front, but here comes High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Falbrough. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish to the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
Welcome back. As promised before the break, we are joined now by Ken Weingartner from the U.S. Trotting Association. Always like to have Ken in on big days on the harness side of the game, and no bigger than tonight at the Meadowlands Breeders' Crown. Last night they had some 2-year-old races. Tonight, the various other divisions. Ken, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. How are you?
Very good. And I think it is fair to say, and I was watching last night, they did a great job. America's Day at the Races, Fox, Acacia Courtney was hosting. Gabe Pruitt was part of the team, Jessica Otten. They did a good job. They'll be back again tonight. And I was watching last night, and they mentioned it, and I will let you verify it for folks who maybe don't follow the harness game as closely, Breeders' Crown is essentially an equivalent to the thoroughbred side of things, the Breeders' Cup, correct? And settles a lot of year-end honors as well.
That's absolutely correct. It's our year-end championship, and as the saying goes, it all comes down to the Breeders' Crown, and that's certainly going to be the case this year, it looks like, in a lot of these divisions.
And last night, again, was two-year-old action. I was watching. I kind of flipped by the channels, and I was channel surfing. And it's like, oh, Breeders' Crown action on. And so it was fun. They went through the entire four two-year-old races, and it was a nice night. Lady Landia wins. Mickey and Minus, I thought, looked very good. Maryland really gutted it out. That was a nice performance. Blueprint, also a winner. Mickey and Minnie and Maryland, both driven by Dexter Dunn, so a nice night for him as well. Give us your thoughts on the performances last night on the two-year-old side of things.
Yeah, it was a good night. There were some longer prices on the board, but not necessarily surprises, because like Blueprint went off at 8-1, but that was mostly because of post position. And had he drawn inside more, I'm sure he would have been one of the favorites. And he really had a great performance. Ronnie Wren Jr. got his first Breeders' Crown win as a driver, and hustled him out of the gate and got a good position and pocket trip and was able to turn it into a win. As you mentioned, Maryland was fantastic. He's been the best two-year-old male trotter all year. He went over $1 million last night. It's the third richest two-year-old male trotter in history. And that, I would say, pretty much locked up divisional honors for him if he didn't have them locked up already.
Yeah, and it was a really nice gutty win, as got challenged a little bit in the stretch, but held them off. So certainly appreciated that. And Dexter Dunn, again, for folks who don't follow the harness game regularly, a relatively new name on the scene, came up from New Zealand, but he has taken over the last couple of years America by storm, and probably worth watching again tonight in the Breeders' Crown races.
Yeah, Dexter has had an amazing career since arriving here in North America. Came from New Zealand, where he had won 10 premiership titles. And since he's been here, he's got 4 Driver of the Year awards. He's probably on his way to his 5th this year. After last night, has 17 Breeders' Crown wins already. So he's quickly moving up the standings among drivers there.
Yeah, and again, on the show last night, they had John Campbell sit in, and there are familiar names to those of us who do follow on a regular basis. And it's interesting when a guy like this comes in and breaks in and does it. And he was kind of modest. It may have been the press release you guys sent out. There was some quotes from him that was like, yeah, I was hoping I'd come over, win a stakes race, and maybe make it such and such amount of money. And yeah, I think over there he was regularly making $3 or $4 million in purses a year, something like that. And now he's regularly over $10 million. And I think he's vying this year for leadership with $13 million in purses, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he is having an amazing year. Last time I looked, and this number has increased since then, he had 60 Grand Circuit wins, and I think Yannick Gingras was next highest with 30. So he has been really dominating on the Grand Circuit this year. And I certainly think he thought he could have a good go of it over here. But, it's very difficult when you're coming over and people are already established with stables, but he's quickly taken over, and he's been the dominant force this year for sure.
So again, worth watching tonight, and that works out very well. The perfect segue, because I wanted to start our look at some of the races for tonight with race number 11. It'll be the Open Mayors, and I wanted to take a look at this race because it features, if you go to the USTA website, there is the current top 10, and Twinbee Joe Fresh is number 1 in that poll. Came into last week, the eliminations at the Meadowlands, came into that with a 9-race win streak, but was upset. And we'll watch the stretch run here from last week. It'll be Grace Hill upsetting Twinbee Joe Fresh.
Legal is last.
And they're both in tonight. Grace Hill gets another shot at Twinbee Joe Fresh. But as I say, Joe Fresh, number 1 in the poll, and vying for potentially with a win tonight, Horse of the Year. And driven by the aforementioned Dexter Dunn. Always Be Naughty is going to run third in here. Always Be Naughty is again in tonight also. This is a fun race and kind of a rematch from last week. See if Twin B Joe Fresh can get back to the winning ways. What are your thoughts in the Open Mayor tonight?
Well, that elimination was interesting because, Twin B Joe Fresh started from post 10, which is the outermost spot on the gate at the Meadowlands, and it's the least advantageous spot as well. And so she had a little bit of a disadvantage there. Grace Hill is a very good horse. She's a former Breeders' Crown champion. She struggled a little bit at midseason. They gave her a break. They brought her back. She's been very good since then with 3 consecutive wins, counting the Breeders' Crown OM. So, I mean, the class is there with her. So that wasn't a total shock. But, the way Twin B Joe Fresh had been racing during that win streak, she had been very dominant. But, horses get beat. And that's what trainers will tell you. You race enough, you're going to get beat at some point. And Chris Ryder, who incidentally was elected into the Hall of Fame earlier this year, he trains her, co-owns her with Dexter Dunn and some other people. And he wasn't overly concerned after that race. He expects her to be right back at top form. She might have just needed that one as a little bit of a tightener as well. And you mentioned Grace Hill. We talked about her a little bit. Always Be Naughty. And one other horse in here, Sylvia Hanover, who's starting from post 9. She was Canada's Horse of the Year last year and a 2-time Breeders' Crown champion. She won at age 2 and 3, beating Twin B Joe Fresh. And she could be a factor in this race because she hasn't been quite at the level of Twin B Joe Fresh during this season. But, with her class and history, as her trainer, Sean Stacy, told me, they have a puncher's chance.
And again, leaving from the 9, a little bit of a price. This will be fun. This will be a highlight of the night, obviously, with the current number 1 in the poll and aiming for potential Horse of the Year, Twin B Joe Fresh in there, but coming off the second place finish. And I'm sure I say it every time you're here and reflects more on me and my age than anything. But I first got into the game right up the turnpike here at Saratoga Harness, and then I kind of went over across the street. Now I'm more into the thoroughbreds. And the thoroughbred game, for the time I've watched it, has not changed as much as the standard bred game, because I can remember, when I watched it in my early days up at Saratoga Harness, if a horse broke 2 minutes, the eyes popped out of your head. But I look at this elimination last week. Grace Hill paces the mile in 1:48 and change and comes to last quarter in 25 and change. It just, the game has, in the time I have watched it, has completely changed. It's been fun to watch.
Yeah, that's the speed. And the speed this year, it seems, has even been more noticeable. Seems to have had a lot of very fast miles this season. You mentioned that final quarter for Grace Hill, 25 and 3. That's kind of a reason not to feel too badly about Twin B Joe Fresh getting beaten from post 10. I mean, she came home in 26 seconds. Usually that's going to get the job done. Just Grace Hill was fantastic that night.
I mean, the fact of the matter is 25 and change for that. We're getting to like thoroughbred time. It's crazy the way that these horses run now. All right, let's go to one race earlier. We're looking at the 3-year-old Colts and Geldings. And again, on the current poll over at the USTA website, we have 2 of the top 5 in here. Captain Albano sits at number 3 at the poll. Nijinsky sitting at number 5. And we're going to take a look at the elimination race last week that was won by Captain Albano. So comes in with that win and is the 8-5 morning line favorite. 3-1 is Nijinsky, who ran a close second last week. Mirage Hanover was the winner in that race with Nijinsky last week. So Mirage Hanover also in here. Interesting tonight. What are your thoughts in the 3-year-old Colts and Gelding space?
Well, this is going to be, as you said, very interesting because Mirage Hanover is kind of the now horse. He's been very sharp his last 3 races. And talking about those final quarters, he came 25 and 4 last week to just get past Nijinsky at the wire. So he's very hot right now. He's got somebody we've talked a little bit about driving, Dexter Dunn, which seems to have helped him. And he's going to be a factor here. Captain Albano, he's going to be trying to, solidify his case for divisional honors. He's been very good. He had not raced since the Little Brown Jug in the middle of September and came in with a very nice performance. I expect he's going to be even sharper off that race now since he had that layoff. And starting from post 5, which is one of the best starting spots at the Meadowlands. So he's going to be in a good position there. Todd McCarthy is driving him. He's another young driver from down under, and he's making a name for himself over here as well. Nijinsky has had some of the big wins of the season. He won the North America Cup. He was the Ontario Sire Stakes champion. He has 10 wins, 2 seconds, and 13 starts. You can't do a whole lot better than that. And I think he's going to be a little bit better off that race last week, too. And those 3 horses are going to battle it out. But that doesn't mean that they're the only 3 that can win this race. And you know how it goes. Sometimes things happen, and this race could set up for somebody else if those 3 are going at it up front.
Well, last night, I think it was the very first Breeders' Crown race. The big favorite broke stride. And as 2-year-olds, that can happen, certainly. I think it was one of the trotters, which
yes.
is a little more understandable. So, yeah, things can happen, no question about it. But, again, we have a couple in the top 5 from the poll with Captain Albano and Nijinsky in that 10th, the 3-year-old Colts and Geldings. Also, a little bit earlier on the card, the final open pace. I wanted to pull this one up because By the Missile looks a little bit interesting in here, and we're going to pull up the elimination from last week. It is going to be By the Missile pretty much all the way around in 148 and change. By the Missile's in tonight, and Ruthless Hanover also coming out of a win last week in an elimination race. Overall, 6 wins and 10 starts this year. I think Ruthless Hanover also very intriguing. How did you see the open pace?
By the Missile coming in here in very good form. He had been sidelined earlier this year. He has only raced 6 times. His last 3 starts have been fantastic. He was the Dan Patch Award winner in this division last year. Looks like he is right back to top form. I talked to Ron Burkish, trainer, the other day, and he said, it was just a matter of getting him right, because when he's right, he is a great, great horse. And he's proving it right now with these last few performances. And he hasn't even drawn well in those races. He started from post 8 in the limb. The previous race, he started from post 10. And the race before that, he started from post 9 and was parked out the whole mile. So he has really come into top form here. I expect him to be very good tonight. Ruthless Hanover, he is very talented and very fast. And he drew inside post 1. It'll be interesting to see how he can get out of there. Sometimes that's not always the best starting spot at the Meadowlands. So it's a little bit intriguing there, because I know he's going to want to try and get to the front or near the front coming out of gate. You mentioned, where are we going? Here, I want to talk about Coach Stefano. Another horse coming in good form with a 25-1 last quarter last week in his elimination. And he could be a factor here from post 7, especially if they mix it up early. And another one is It's My Show, a very talented horse. He's a 4-year-old. He's kind of been finding his way this year as a 4-year-old racing against older horses. But he won the Canadian Pacing Derby. Trainer Linda Toscano has raced him lightly coming into this, because she says he's a little bit better when he's fresh. So he could be a factor from post 3 here. So it looks like By the Missile, off his current form, definitely will be the favorite coming in.
Yannick Gingras driving tonight. Let's look at one more. 6th race is the 3-year-old fillies. Disney is interesting to me in here, having put in a big closing kick to win last week, and at 8-1 with Tim Tetrick in the bike. I thought Disney was intriguing. Rocket Dio, last week ran fifth in the elimination after having led most of the way, but a close-up fifth. This one's intriguing as well, but all eyes, I think, will be on my girl, EJ Dexter Dunn in the bike after a win in the elimination last week. Give us your thoughts in the 3-year-old fillies race.
This is one of the races that will go a long way to deciding divisional honors because you have several horses here that can make very strong cases. My girl EJ being one of them. She won her elimination last week. It's a love thing, who's raced very well all season. She won the Fan Hanover Stakes earlier this year. She could make a case for divisional honors. It's going to be a very competitive race. There are 6 horses in this race that are 8-1 or lower on the morning line. So that kind of gives you an indication of, how tightly bunched this group is. My girl EJ has been very good. I expect her to be very good again tonight. Disney is intriguing off of her last race. She was racing at the lower levels of the Kentucky Tire Stakes Series, kind of developing. Brett Pelling trains her. He has 4 horses in this race. He said she's just still kind of learning her way. And she looks like she's learning pretty quickly at this point. Yeah. She's been very good lately. Rocket Deo, as you mentioned, was 5th last week. Brett Pelling said she had been sick a little bit the week prior. It started to improve several days before the race. They think, her issues with the sickness during the week kind of took a little bit out of her maybe. So she should be back and better than that last performance because at her best, she is very capable of winning in this group.
Again, it's a nice card. We've just hit on some of the stakes action tonight, the Breeders' Crown. Essentially, as I say, the equivalent of the Thoroughbred Breeders' Cup. It'll decide a lot of the year-end honors, and it was fun last night on the 2-year-old side of things. All the other divisions tonight covered. Again, America's Day at the Races. We'll have the races here, obviously, on OTB TV as well. Ken, we appreciate the thoughts. What was the atmosphere like last night, kicking Breeders' Crown off?
Oh, it was a great atmosphere at the Meadowlands. It was wonderful weather. For this time of year, you couldn't ask for better weather, and it's going to be another great night weather-wise tonight. I expect a good crowd, and it's going to be great racing.
Yeah, looking forward to it, certainly, because, as I say, I kind of kick things off on the harness side of things. I still enjoy the Trotters and the Pacers, and I thought we would get you in here this morning just to preview some of the nice action coming up tonight for folks like me who can kind of go back and forth. And in our audience as well, there are a lot of harness fans right off the bat. So I wanted to give some thoughts on that. So we appreciate your thoughts, Ken. Good luck tonight. Have fun, and we'll talk again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate it. Ken Weingartner, again, U.S. Trotting Association, with some thoughts on tonight's Breeders' Crown action at the Meadowlands. Before we wrap up, I had pulled up Jenny Reese. The news came out, the unfortunate news came out yesterday. Idiomatic out of the Breeders' Cup distaff. A little bit of a ding, which seems to be not serious, but it was enough that it was going to not allow her to run in the Breeders' Cup. So they had retired Idiomatic. But Jenny Reese, our friend from Kentucky, who does some great media work for the Kentucky HBPA, she bounces around the backstretch in front of big events and gets some nice interviews. And she caught up with Brad Cox yesterday to talk a little bit about Idiomatic and the situation. So I thought we'd pull up that about 3 minutes, and we'll hear Brad Cox's thoughts on the Idiomatic situation. That's up next. I'll come back and wrap it up in a few. Here we go.
And, for her to come back at the age of 5 and accomplish what she did and was, amazing. Very proud of her career, and, excited about getting her shipped off and getting her bred, and hopefully some point down the road, maybe training a few of her babies. So, great career. Very proud of her, and, hopefully, see what happens in the Breeders' Cup, but hopefully she could maybe take home another Eclipse in January.
Just run us through this morning, kind of what you saw. And
yeah, wasn't happy with her. First thing, we checked her on the road. just her typical or normal inspection, and just was found a little something different. Immediately took X-rays and saw something was brewing. Nothing major at all. Just needs time, and obviously timing's awful in regards to trying to bring her back. So, it is what it is, and I'm glad we caught it before it ended up any worse than it did. Like I said, she sounded the walk just a little bit off the trot, and she'll be fine.
And they didn't have to bring her. Judmont didn't have to bring her back in training this year, but did. But she had a good year. She had
She had a big.
Spinster.
Well, I mean, we'll see how things go in the Breeders' Cup. But she's a 2-time grade winner, and I think she's the leader in the division right now in regards to older filly mare, the older filly mare division. So I think it's very possible she could win another Eclipse. So it's worth bringing her back. Up until we saw X-rays this morning, we had kind of talked about bringing her back next year, but with what she has going on at this stage of her career, horses as they get a little bit older don't heal quite as quick as they do when they're younger. So I just think it's in the best interest to probably just obviously shut her down and breed her.
And she was a horse that took her time coming around, and you had her up in the winter at Turfway, and then she just kept
getting better
winning.
and better. Yeah, she's obviously Judmont homebred, and it's big time pedigree, and by a world class stallion, and she's a world class racehorse. So she continued to get better as she got older, like a lot of Curlins do, and a lot of Judmont horses do, and once again, very proud of what she accomplished, and looking forward to maybe training some of her babies. It's kind of odd, her half sister shipped in yesterday, so she's here now training, and we'll hopefully get her ready to run in the near future.
What has training her? I know you've trained a lot of great horses, but what has training her meant to your career?
A lot. I mean, we obviously had Monomoy Girl in that division, and she was a very good 3-year-old, and then was able to come back as an older horse and be competitive. But she means a tremendous amount. She's taught us to be patient. She's rewarded us for being patient to start her career, and she's been a very talented, hard-knocking filly.
When you look at her Spinster, that ends up being the last race of her career. How big is it for her to go out on top like that with as impressive a performance as she had?
It's huge. I mean, she received big figures out of that race, and I think people kind of questioned she wasn't as good as this year she was last year. But I felt like, based off the way she was training and the numbers she was receiving, that she was every bit as good this year. I felt like she may have been the target in races as opposed to last year when she was running against some other really good fillies and mares where they may have been the target or come from off the pace. They didn't zero in on her, and kind of zeroed in on her a little bit this year. And, that's part of racing. She's a top mare that, had to overcome some things, and she always responded and always showed up and finished her career with a wonderful race record.
So again, unfortunate news, Idiomatic out of the Breeders' Cup Distaff, the much anticipated duel with Torpedo Anna. We were all hoping that would come down to a big stretch run. Not going to happen, but Torpedo Anna is still working well up here, and headed to the Breeders' Cup Distaff now as potentially the favorite. And so she still has the intrigue and the storyline playing into Breeders' Cup weekend. Should be fun. Never fails that, coming into the Derby and big races, and certainly the Breeders' Cup with a number of races, never fails the last couple of weeks, week and a half, week. There are always, at least one or two defections, major defections. But again, that was disappointing news yesterday from the camp behind Idiomatic. Let me remind you, coming up here, Capital OTB today, $1,000 up for grabs. You have to come down to the Clubhouse Racebook for the King of the Hill contest. And again, if you're not familiar, King of the Hill, you come down, get an entry sheet at the beginning of the day. There are a number of races outlined. First couple of races, your horse, the horse that you pick, has to run in the top 4. So the first couple of races, you have to be in the top 4 with your horse. Next couple of races, the top 3. Next couple of races, the top 2. And the final race, you have to have the winner. And if so, you can potentially pick up that $1,000 if you stop at the Clubhouse Racebook this afternoon. Why not take your shot? King of the Hill contest today. Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Same spot that throughout the NFL season we have football Sundays. Come on down to the Clubhouse Racebook, watch some football action and some racing action throughout the NFL season. Sundays here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Grab a little lunch at our food vendor, Black Bear. And as I always say, you can get lunch here anytime at Black Bear, but certainly on Sundays, come down, little lunch, little football, little racing. What better way to spend a Sunday afternoon in the fall? Tomorrow also, we open entries for the Steve Bick $1,500 Breeders' Cup Bankroll. Entries will be open through Wednesday afternoon, but they open tomorrow. Go to capitalotb.com, look for the promotions link at the top of the page, then look for that graphic right there. Click on that. There will be an entry form opening tomorrow afternoon. Fill it out, and we will randomly select the team on Wednesday, late Wednesday, after we close the entries, and you get a shot to pick up a little extra dough Breeders' Cup weekend with Steve Bick playing that $1,500, some on Friday and some on Saturday. And speaking of the Breeders' Cup, coming up on Wednesday this week, Breeders' Cup seminar. That'll be at 7 o'clock on Wednesday. You can see it here on the network, on our YouTube page, and or other social media platforms. Breeders' Cup seminar coming up this Wednesday evening. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Seth Merrow on a Saturday morning, but I will be back in Saturday afternoon as usual with OTB Live. I'm going to look at some Belmont at the Big A and some Keeneland. And we're early this morning, as we have been for a while now this fall, because of the early kickoff at Belmont at Aqueduct. It's a 12:10 start. That means their pregame show will kick off half an hour or so. They'll start their early show down at Belmont at Aqueduct, and so we wanted to be wrapped up by then. And as I say, we've been doing it for a while now. And last year, as daylight savings time ended, they got to a little more of a consistent start time, and it was a little bit later, 12:20, something like that. But it looks like the schedule had come out. Looks like things are going to be early now for a while. They're on Saturdays. They're still going to try to squeeze in some races and have some early kickoffs. So it looks like we may have some early Saturdays for a while now in here. We will keep you alerted to start times and whatnot, however. But today, 12:10 at Belmont at the Big A, 1 o'clock at Keeneland. We will have plenty more action here on the network as well, but that means I'll be back in at, a couple hours or so. We'll kick things off, taking a look at the opener in New York to kick off a Saturday OTB Live. Looking forward to it. Hopefully you are too. Appreciate your tuning in this morning. Hopefully we gave you some ideas for today. That's what it's all about. So we're looking forward to returning to see if we can cash in those ideas. As I said, about a couple hours for OTB Live on a Saturday afternoon. We'll see you then.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
We'd like to thank Woodbine for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Woodbine open now through December, featuring great racing, including the King's Plate coming up in August, Turf Champions Day with the Woodbine Mile in September, and much, much more. Woodbine Racing, great racing north of the border.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.
Watch that deep closing style, drops back, makes that one run, aptly named. But as Caton mentioned, he is still on the outside looking in, hoping to get into the Classic.
So, Simon, we've got a lot to get to today, but we're going to get to Carl Spackler first. Carl Spackler, he ran a great race at Keeneland last time after Chad Brown. I mean, he stole it on the front end. There's a look at him right now. Dogs are out as he's getting his final preparation today.
Yeah, he's done nothing wrong. He's won, 3 of his last 4 starts, and we know what he does, right? He goes to the front or he sits just off the pace and runs his race. He's a very forwardly placed horse. He's got a lot of speed. He's shown the ability to come from off of it back in the Hall of Fame last year, but I think this is where he's better suited up on the front end, and he looks tremendous.